And he had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man at his craft. But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, he's blowing reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he could not jam. The captain seemed to understand, because the next day the captain went out and drafted a band. And now the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. A root, a toot, a tootly-a-toot, he blows an H to the bar. In boogie rhythm, he can't blow a note unless the bass and guitar is playing with him. And the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. He was the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. And when he plays boogie-woogie bugle, he was busy as a boozy bee. And when he plays, he made the company jump A to the bar. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. Toot-toot, he blows an A to the bar. He can blow a note of a bass and guitar isn't with him. And the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B.
When and why did you come to La Mirada?
I came to La Mirada in about 1956, and mainly because my work. I was living in North Hollywood, and my work was on this side of town in Santa Fe Springs, where my trucking operation was. So it was just a convenience because of my employment.
How long have you been a member?
I was a member of the organization while we were still in the stage of meeting with one another and discussing and deciding what we were going to become. And we became a formal organization around '57, and I was a member of one of the members who were discussing and planning at that time.
Have your kids gone to Temple Beth or Sunday and Hebrew School?
Yes, I had a son and a daughter. My daughter, some of you have met, she's the kindergarten teacher here. And they've gone through our school system and the camp system and confirmation. And so we really had a lot to do with the temple through our children.
What activities have you done at the temple?
General answer, I have been president of the congregation 10 different times, and at the times that I was president, you would get involved in all the activities. You work on everything, of course, and you direct and you help, and I could probably take an hour to answer which activities, but mainly it's in leadership positions all through the years.
Why did you choose to join Temple Beth Or?
When we first moved to this end of town from North Hollywood, the only temple close to us was near Talmud in Downey. In fact, we had nothing going here for a school, so my son had to go there, and we had to join for a short time so that he could get his schooling and be bar mitzvah near Talmud. Then as soon as we developed our temple and our school, we shifted over to this organization. And when I was a sister who was younger, and she went to school here. And the rest is kind of history of the temple.
What is your favorite memory of Temple Beth Or?
To watch the organization grow and change from a social, noisy group that argued all the time to a corporation that works hard and has a wonderful reputation in La Mirada. We're all proud of that, and I think that that's the thing that I think about most, because the city has become a city, and we became a temple, and we've kind of grown up together, and we're very involved with each other. They're involved in the temple. We have friends in the city hall, and they know that they have friends here for them.
Mr. Lofchie, where did your parents and grandparents come from?
My parents, my dad came from Poland around 1900, and I didn't ever know my grandparents, but I've seen where they lived. My grandfather was active in a temple and helped build a cemetery for a temple, and in fact he has a statue. So I know of my grandparents, but they were all from Poland, and my mother was born in this country though, born in America, and stayed on the East Coast where I come from many, many years after her family had moved to California, strangely enough.
Did your family change their name?
And, we have a family history of the family coming and photos of the people, and I see nothing in any of those records that show the name spelled differently from day one, and right now we have about 600 relatives who are blood relatives of the name Lofchie, and it has not changed in my opinion.
Where were you born?
I was born in West End of Boston, and lived there until I was 6 years old in North Russell Street. That's really in the middle of the ghetto as it was known in those days. Family very large, 7 brothers. My dad was one of the brothers, and some girls, 2 or 3 girls, and this was the center of the family activity at that time.
Were there Jewish kids in your school?
1 or 2, that's a very non-Jewish community. No temple, no organizations, no youngster clubs, but Boston had a lot more, but this was a suburb. It sounded very much like La Mirada.
Did you belong to a temple at your youth?
No, I didn't have one in my hometown, and I got active a little bit later, after I had been away from home and then came back.
All right, Mr. Lofchie, what makes you Jewish?
I can't ever remember not being Jewish in my home, because in those days, it seemed to me everybody was Orthodox. My mother and father did everything that a good Jewish family could do and should do. And although I didn't go to any schooling, wasn't convenient, the holidays, the Passover and all the holidays, everything we do today, we did in those days. And changing the dishes and cleaning the house and getting ready to eat special foods, and that's pretty Jewish.
How did the Holocaust affect you?
This is just very, very briefly. In 1941, I went in the Army, and I was in the Army till 1946, 5 years.
So you fought the whole war?
Oh yeah, I didn't miss anything. And of course the Holocaust, I have a hard time talking about that.
It's okay.
It's all right, man.
But to be Jewish and go in the service, that was an honor. And we did. And of course there were a lot of Jewish boys in the service. I became an officer. I was a captain before I came out. And I made sure that the holidays and that all of the Jewish boys in the companies that I was involved with knew they were Jewish and they were treated properly, and they were. The Army was very fair about everything as far as religion went. And so the Holocaust affected all those years, and I was fortunate to get back to Dachau, one of the camps that was after the war. I was pretty well limited to where I traveled. In those days, there was specific areas where there was combat, and then the areas to the rear of those areas of combat was much safer, but you just didn't drive around or roam around. Nowadays, the war is completely different. And went through the camp, just one particular camp. It was close to a city. They had to know what was going on. You could see the smokestacks from the city. And then I went through the same camp as a civilian after I got out of the service. Got a good look at it, and it was kept the way it was originally, and it's quite a lesson to see all of that. The Germans were great engineers, and how anybody could get out of those camps is unbelievable, because it was double fences, trenches everywhere, towers for the gunners to sit and watch for the inmates to make sure they didn't get out or do anything wrong. And it was quite an experience to see what our people put up with.
How much did you know here in the States what was really going, what was being told here in the general, other than
In 1941, March 1941, I went into service. And although we were not equipped at all, we were just starting in, We all knew what we were getting into. We all knew. Troops all knew. Why our government didn't take specific steps. For example, we controlled the air over Germany very quickly. Why we didn't shut off all the transportation and all the railroads and all of the camp movements and all of, I don't know why the government didn't do that. Roosevelt, I don't think, was sure enough of his position on helping free the Jews, and so he kind of had to hold back. I think it was political.
Oh, sure.
We could have done a lot more. We should have. To see the rail lines were easy to see. In fact, after the war was over, the day after the war was over, I had a good friend of mine who was a major in the Air Force, and he had a small plane available. An A-26 is a plane with a large glass nose on the front of the plane. And we flew over the entire country of Germany at about 1,000 feet in the air, and there was nothing standing, nothing. And it's just amazing that they rebuilt that country. I don't see how they did it. But there was nothing. There wasn't even a chimney. There was nothing over the entire. Saw the whole thing. Unbelievable. But we have the weapons in that kind of a war. It's a little different now.
How did the birth of the State of Israel affect you?
We all know the history that our people have been through. It seems to us that drifting from one country to another, although the Jewish people have adapted very well, and we have also. Having a state really very important. Hopefully they can get over some of their political problems and be a little more less orthodox, because that's causing quite a problem, and with the military, and it helps the people generally. Gives us some spokesmen for us.
All right. Have you ever gone to Israel?
No, I have never been in Israel.
Same here.
I should go, but I've been very active in this area. I've been very busy in La Mirada over this last 50 years.
Hey, maybe you should go on vacation.
What is your hope for our generation?
Well, we have an opportunity to do the right thing, to follow our principles, and to understand that just because we have a hard time as Jews, we have so much to offer the world and in our own country, even in our community here in La Mirada. I think that we have a good example for the public, and we do. I've worked with the voting proposition on all the elections all these years. We now have become a major voting center. I operated here this last election with 4 precincts in our one building. That's hundreds of people, thousands of people who came through here, and we wanted to be helpful. So that's how we do our future. We want to do the right thing, take part in our community, and be leaders. And we're doing okay.